Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Unfiltered Feed podcast, episode 20. We are doing a long form episode after quite a while. We just recorded our TUF mini, so by the time we are uploading this, you might have already seen the notification for that. So, I'd like to ask my co host for this week and for every week. Yes. So, how was your past week?
Hello, everybody. This past week was very good, and the weekend has been really nice so far. It's only Saturday, so it's not even halfway done. So we both are very happy still. But there's a F1 race in about an hour and a half, so I'm very excited for that. And before that, I'm sure we'll have a great podcast.
Yes. And in about half an hour, we have the India versus South Africa test match. It's the second day starting as well. So there are a lot of reasons to wrap this up quickly.
Yeah.
So I think let us talk about cricket, something that we haven't talked about since our last episode, basically. So what went past us like a flash was the first Ashes test.
Yeah.
I think you didn't even get time to catch up on it, and it got over before that. So, did you manage to see what happened in the game?
I was following it on ESPN Cricinfo, so I saw the massive, the massive opening spell that Mitch Stark had. And then I also tuned into the highlights that they posted on YouTube for day one. But as you said, day two, it started off with a bang and then it just got over so quickly that I didn't even realize that the match ended. So I'll now go back and watch the highlights for day two. But it was quite an eventful opening test.
Yeah, so it ended in just 2 days, and Australia chased down 204 in the fourth innings for the loss of just 2 wickets in 28 overs, which is way quicker than any other run chase you'd see in Test cricket, let alone ODI cricket as well.
Was this the one of the shortest Ashes tests? Did they break a
Yeah,
record or something?
this was the third uh, quickest test match and
Wow.
in terms of overs at least. But surely in the recent era this was the fastest, not counting the uncovered pitches era. So I think the pitch was in contention, and if you remember last year the Border Gavaskar Trophy, not to be the person who links everything to himself, but India also played on a similar track last year, and they too won the toss and batted first, just like England. And they were bowled out for 150. England were bowled out for 170, and they managed to bowl out Australia for 100, and England bowled out Australia for about 140. So it was in balance, and it was going exactly as the last test went. The only difference being India's second innings, where they piled up 480 because you could see that the pitch was getting better to bat on, and that has been the pattern in Perth. It starts off as a very spicy pitch, and in just I think the first 4 or 5 sessions is really hard to bat, and then it gets easier. And that is where England failed to capitalize. They went with their go hard, go out kind of
Baseball
approach.
approach.
Yeah. And I think they were in a good position at around 80 for 2, and then they lost 3 wickets for basically nothing, and then just went all out because they saw that they're losing wickets. All they had to do was play out another maybe an hour or so, and then the conditions were theirs to take advantage of. I expected Joe Root to stand tall, at least in the second innings. He got out for zero in the first inning, and so they struggled, and then you saw that the pitch did flatten out. You had Braden Cast and Gus Atkinson actually stitch a 50-run partnership for England,
Wow.
and then Australia absolutely annihilated them. So I think that is where India were good last year, where they really let some time pass by. They played slowly, if I remember correctly. KL Rahul and Jaiswal batted for about 50 overs or even more for that opening stand alone. And then you had Virat Kohli come in and score that 100 as well. So Bumrah remains the only captain to defeat Australia at Perth Stadium, which is an incredible record.
Wow.
So I think before we move on, I would like to say that Australia is a very tough venue to come and play Test cricket. So winning is very pretty much not even considered as a chance. So do you think that India has spoiled us at least because we are in a position where we always expect our team to win and do not consider the fact that others can be equally good or better than us? Or is it justified because of the power and talent we have? So do you think as a fan you should give India, cut them a bit of slack because you see teams touring around the world generally don't succeed, but you expect India to succeed, or they should succeed just because they are India.
I think they should succeed because we have a talent pool like no other country right now. Even right now, I think we had the test team playing against South Africa, and at the same time we had two different India A sides playing, and we also had a lot of other players. You know, Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma weren't playing. There's so many people who are resting, and you also have three different Indian teams playing. So the talent pool is massive. So with the amount of skill that we have in our side, we basically have a team that can win anywhere. So we should, if not win each time, we should at least be in contention to win. We cannot lose one-sided. That's unacceptable now. But that it just comes with the skill and the talent as it increases in your side. I'm sure this was also the case for Australia back in the early 2000s when they were dominating. Whenever they lost any series away from home or at home, it must have been a huge surprise or a shock, and it would have triggered a lot of management decisions or something like that. And that's exactly happening to India right now. So it's fair. We have the talent, so we have to win.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair assessment because when we didn't have talent, we used to cut them slack and
Yeah,
treat them as a normal side. But now I think with the resources and the talent both combined, we should be in a position to compete at least, which we
yeah.
have done in England recently. We couldn't do that in Australia. So I think it is high time that we start showing consistency in our results because I can clearly see a bit of a pattern developing, especially with our test team being on a decline. It's not something new. It's been happening even before this era, I would say. We were absolutely invincible about 4 years back, and it hasn't been the same in at least the last 3 years. So I think there needs to be a review, and I don't know. I started talking about Ashes and I ended with
Yeah,
India.
exactly. But before we talk about the Indian test match that happened, I wanted to share an interesting stat that I heard from a shot by Cricket with Baba. He's someone who I follow and he speaks really nicely and he makes sense. So it's clear that he watches cricket and he understands the game. So an interesting stat that he shared was if you remember the test match, it was the Ashes test series in 2011, I think, which happened in Australia. That was when Mitchell Johnson was making his mark in the test side and he was being booed ridiculously by the Barmy army. They kept trolling him for his inconsistency as a bowler and the fact that he kept smiling whenever things didn't go his way. So they kept trolling him for that and it was very brutal on him. You could see from his reactions that he was not happy and he took that to his heart and Australia actually lost that test series. I think England won that 3-1 or 4-1, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah,
And that basically completely changed the picture for Australia in Australia because the next time England visited, that was in 2014. And in that series, you had a completely different version of Mitch Johnson. He had that iconic mustache with an extension to the beard, that scary look, and he was in the form of his life. I think he had taken more than 30 wickets in that Ashes series. And ever since that match, or ever since that series, England has never won a test match in Australia for all these years. So that the booing, it definitely inspired Australia to come back and basically smash England ever since. So that was quite surprising that they haven't lost to England in Australia for almost 15 years now, or almost 12 years. That's quite a start.
Yeah, Joe Root and Ben Stokes are two of the best test players of this generation, and they're yet to win a test match in Australia. So
Yeah,
it's quite remarkable. And not that it's the same way in England, because Australia haven't lost in England as well in their last two attempts. They have drawn both times, 2-2. So basically, last four times, last four Ashes, Australia have been unbeaten, which is
yeah.
quite good. So England need to put up a fight this time around. And now that you have the ping ball test coming up next, I don't see that happening. Though it's not at Adelaide, which is their hunting ground, Australia's hunting ground. It is in Brisbane at the Gabba,
Gabba.
which is where they lost their only ping ball test that they played at the Gabba, famously to Shamar Joseph.
Yeah.
So there is a chance, but I don't see them winning the ping ball test at least. So basically, you go into the last three tests being 2-0 down and you lost the chance to win the series. That's what happens in Australia every single time. And one interesting thing I would like to bring up is Matthew Hayden, who has famously been quoted saying that if Joe Root doesn't get 100 in this Ashes, he'll walk around Sydney naked. That is what he publicly said. So I do see that as a possibility because the pitches will only get harder from here. I think Perth's second innings was Joe Root's best chance, and I'm not too early to say this, as most people might think. He still has got four tests, and he'll get good conditions in MCG, I think. But other than that, it is going to be hard. So
Do
I
you
can
think
see that happening.
any other batsman get 100 from England?
Yeah, I think Ben Duckett and Harry Brook are my two predictions to do well, especially Harry Brook. I think he's going to have a bumper Ashes. He did score a 50 in the first innings,
Yeah.
and I can see the conditions suiting his style of play. Not too much to Joe Root's style, but more towards Harry Brook.
Okay. That will be interesting to watch because I had predicted that England would win the Ashes this time because they have a pretty solid team, and I also thought that Australia were severely underpowered because they didn't have their pace bowling department. The captain is also missing, so and I was quite happy to see Australia get bundled up for under 150. So I thought that my prediction was coming true, but then England also collapsed again. So yeah, I think it looks tough now. So they have to win the ping ball test. But as you said, that might be tough. So my prediction might also be it might be difficult for it to come true.
Yeah. And do you think we have seen the last of Usman Khawaja for Australia?
To be honest, I have no idea about his form, about what's happening in the Australian side. I don't even know if there are talks of removing him. But what I noticed was he didn't open in either innings, if I'm not wrong. So in the first
Yeah.
inning it was Labuschagne, and in the second inning it was Travis Head. So if they're not opening with Khawaja, then that might be it might be signs that they are trying someone else. So he might be dropped.
Yeah. So basically, he was slated to open in both the innings, but both times he got injured on the field and left the field just
Oh,
before the batting, so he couldn't open. So I don't know if he did that deliberately the first time at least because of how spicy the pitch was. But I can see them because he doesn't necessarily provide them confidence at the top. He starts very slow and he's someone who is not in good form either. So I can see them now going with Travis Head at the top because he's played a generational innings and maybe getting Bo Webster, who in the first place deserved to be there.
Yeah.
So I can see that happening, though it's not ideal for Travis Head to open because you don't want to expose your best or your most impactful batter to the new ball every time. It worked here, but not necessarily it will always work. But I can certainly see them doing that just to get in Bo Webster. So watch out for that, and we'll talk about it when this eventually happens. I'll make a shot and
Prediction.
do something. Yeah. So now I think we can just quickly talk about the India versus South Africa test. The last time we recorded a podcast, I was heart shattered. My heart was shattered, sorry, because of the loss that I had to endure and India had to endure at Kolkata. So they've come closer to the East Coast, this time in Guwahati, and playing the second test, which is the first time that there's a test match being played in Guwahati at the Barsapara Stadium.
Yeah.
So the first day is over at the time of recording and the match is in balance. So there was a lot of talk about the pitch, as you know, as it has always been the case. But this time around, the pitch seems to be good, at least a playable pitch. So I don't know if it will break down, but by the looks of it, it looks like a normal pitch. So I don't want to talk about the match right now, but something that Ryan Tendeshkate said in the press conference which really shocked me because he, after the first display, he came in and he said that I think our team is suited to these type of pitches more than the last one. So if this is the realization that he's come to after so long, after being thrashed by New Zealand at home last year and after struggling in Sri Lanka against spin and then versus South Africa. So if it's taken them so long to realize the simple fact that India does well in neutral conditions, so I don't know what this management has been doing because you can't take so long to realize that you don't need to doctor the pitches for your team to perform. And when you doctor the pitches, it just brings the opponent into the game rather than making you more dominant. So, what are your views on this?
I think now that we don't have Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli anymore, they have kind of lost that excuse. Because in the past, whenever we did bad, a lot of fans and experts, including yourself, would blame Rohit Sharma for the tactic of always going for the kill and aggressive cricket. I think the issue is that we don't really have batters who are patient and who can actually bat defensively or play the long game in Test cricket. Because in the past as well, India have always done well on spinning tracks. We've had the best spinners in the world like Ashwin and Jadeja. But at the same time, we had really talented Test match batters in Pujara, Ajinkya Rahane, Virat Kohli in his peak, and maybe even the likes of Shikhar Dhawan at the top. He was very consistent. Now, if you look at the Indian side, there's a lot of inexperience, and most of these players also play in other formats, which is why they inherently have that attacking mindset. And this started with Rohit Sharma as the captain, but it's also continued into this Indian side. You have players like Jaiswal, Rishabh Pant, Dhruv Jurel. All of these guys, they try to score a lot of runs, which might not always work on difficult pitches where you need to take the time and play slowly. Something we saw from Temba Bavuma in the first test. So it's a mix of both things. I think what they've realized is this team prefers batting friendly pitches where they can score a lot of runs and put the opposition under pressure in that way, instead of having a bowling friendly pitch and try and dismantle the opposition's batting. These are different strategies depending on the strength of your players. Not everything works for all the teams. So I think this team might like batting tracks where they can score a lot of runs.
Yeah, but I think a traditional Indian pitch is not the one we saw in Kolkata. That was a complete lottery pitch, and that is the one which I don't think any team would like, even the old Indian team who were supposedly good players of spin. If you have a pitch like that where there's inconsistent bounce and a lot of turn, it is eventually going to be difficult for you. And it just brings the opposition into the game because both of you, it just nullifies your skills. So I think it is important to acknowledge that your spinners, your bowling is your strength. So that doesn't mean you make bowling pitches. It means that your bowling can handle good batting pitches as well and do well on
Yeah,
those.
yeah.
So I don't know what's the message, but definitely they need to be working on this because if you see against West Indies, they did make good pitches and they just felt the need to screw it up and make a rubbish track against South Africa because they fear that on good
They're the
batting
world
pitches,
champions, so they might
yeah, they
beat
fear
us.
that on good batting pitches, their batters will do well. But what they
Yeah,
don't realize is that on good bowling pitches, their bowlers can do well, and that is more damaging to the side because you have got quality and experience in your bowling, so they can pretty much do well and kind of control the things even when things are not in their favor. As you saw in the second test, I think it's a very good pitch to bat on, and this is a traditional Indian track which will open up eventually, but not on the first day or the second day. So you saw India were down and out, and they were, I think South Africa were 160 for 2 at one stage, and then India still managed to pull things back. So this is something that India is known for doing at home,
yeah,
just not letting the opponent run away with the game, and then their batters, they do exactly that. So they don't fail to capitalize, but if they don't get the conditions to do that, then they'll always end up in a kind of a middling score and then expect your bowlers to bail you out and all of that. So this is a strategy which I didn't like, and hopefully now that Tendeshkat has said that the team has realized this, hopefully they don't resort to such stupid tracks against quality teams. Because if you think your team is good enough to beat West Indies on normal tracks, then why can't they do that against South Africa?
yeah, exactly. So from what you're saying, this wicket was similar, or this experiment was very similar to the World Cup final, where we tried to artificially make the pitch suit us, and it went wrong, and we lost the game. I also wanted to bring up an important point, and this is in relation with this test and also the Ashes first test. And I also mentioned this earlier to you outside of this podcast. What is your opinion on the ODIfication of Test match cricket? We saw Travis Head score 100 in what 80 or 70 odd balls. We saw India in the first test. All of them basically tried to hit out, and they got out. I remember watching Akshar Patel. He had hit in, I think, two or three sixes of Keshav Maharaj, and he tried to go for one more, and then he got out. And if he had stayed, India could have won. You never know. And in general, all of our batters are now with this aggressive mindset where they only want to score quick runs, and they don't really want to play those Pujara-esque knocks or even Bavuma-esque knocks where you take your time, play slowly, and let the runs stick instead of scoring boundaries. So, what do you think this does for the longevity of Test cricket? Because people used to watch Test cricket for the patience that the batters show, but now if you're going to have shorter Test matches or you're going to have innings that last hardly 25-30 overs, would the same appeal for Test cricket remain? And should they do something about this?
Yeah, I think it's not that the batters don't want to play the long innings, but the conditions play a role there as well. Because if you can see that some ball has got your name on it. So eventually you will get out. So it is difficult to try and build an innings in those conditions because there's no point trying to get settled in because you will never be able to do it. At some point, some ball will stay low, have extra turn, or do something weird of the pitch, and you'll get out. So that's why the mindset has been to instead attack. Because if you see in the first test, in the first innings, when the conditions weren't like they hadn't assessed the conditions to be so bad, they were actually going at less than two and over India,
Yeah,
and then they realized that it's of no use because the score wasn't moving, and yet it was not that they were getting settled either. So that's when the second innings they tried to approach it in a different way. And that's what happened with Australia as well. But I think in Australia, Travis Head is an exception because no one really does it that way. But over the years, as you mentioned, this has been happening. The run rate, the average run rate.
yeah, and not just that, I don't really see any modern player who can play those long innings. Like I think you mentioned that Alistair Cook once played an innings that was longer than England's combined overs that they played. So there's no modern Alistair Cook, there's no modern Pujara, there's no modern Steve Smith in his prime. So I think we are missing players like those who make Test cricket really fun.
Yeah, I think uh, most of the teams being in a transitional phase means that you won't really get to see that until the players are grinded in. But I feel that that era is past us, and nobody nowadays likes to approach Test cricket in that way because the entire mindset has been affected, as you mentioned. So teams try to take the game forward and not just hang in there. And if you see, I don't know the exact stats, but the average match conditions or the pitch conditions has also been a lot worse. You had a
Yeah.
lot of flat tracks in the past, and that yielded in a lot of draws. Nowadays, you don't get such conditions. You rarely get them. The last time we had such a placid wicket in India, at least, was I think back in Ahmedabad in 2023, Border Gavaskar Trophy, which was a draw where Australia scored 550, India scored 580. So those kind of games are now you don't get them, and a big reason for that is World Test Championship because
Mm.
you don't want to lose on home advantage and not win matches at home. So you try and make conditions which force a result so that you can take advantage of your conditions, doctor them to the way you like, and win test matches. Sometimes teams take it to the extreme, like India, so that is where you have to draw a line. But you can't really do anything to that unless you change the WTC format in some way where every win doesn't matter that much. But then you also need context in Test cricket, so it's a double-edged sword. And I feel that in the last few years, we have seen a lot of exciting cricket, and that is what ICC would like at the end of the day. More than following the Test cricket philosophy, if they're getting more viewers at the end of the day, I think that is what makes them happier. You see filled crowds in Australia, England, New Zealand, and South Africa all the time. So people are genuinely excited in Test cricket, and that has got to do with the updated philosophy of scoring runs quicker and producing results.
Okay, this is the last follow-up question. As a core cricket fan, I think you are one of those people who can be called a core cricket fan. Do you enjoy this modern style of Test cricket, or do you miss the old format where you would see players grind for the entire day, and you would see a lot of high-scoring matches where teams would score 600, 550, 600 runs on a regular basis?
I don't necessarily miss that because after a point, it does get a bit boring. if especially when you realize that teams aren't playing to win, but they're just playing to survive or playing for a draw. So that has definitely reduced in the last few years because as a viewer, you want equal action. You don't want just one kind of team dominating. Neither do you want both teams only dominating with the bat. You want a equal contest between bat and ball, and that is what was lacking in those days. All the times, but in most matches, uh, I feel that there should be a balance. Neither do you want the Ahmedabad kind of pitches, neither do you want the Kolkata test pitches. You want something in between. I think the India versus England series, which happened in 2024 in India, those had some of the best, and I think those kind of set a should have set a kind of a trend
A benchmark.
for a benchmark for pitches in India because you had equal balance between bat and ball. There was something for the bowlers. Yet if you grind it out, you could do well. You saw Jaiswal scoring 700 runs in that series.
Yeah,
So those are the kind of pitches you want, not like Perth, not like Kolkata. And then you just see how teams adapt and how they try and force a result in those conditions where it's not for granted that you'll get a result. You have to work hard and get the result, but at the same time, it's not extremely hard. So that balance is important, and that is what teams are scared to do because of the points at stake.
that's a interesting perspective. For me, Test cricket historically means matches that will last for 5 days, and it will go down to the last session sometimes, where you need to dismiss a team to win the test, something like that, where we've seen in the past. Or even the GABA test, where we had to chase a lot of runs in the fourth innings. Or one of those tests in that same series where Vihari and Ashwin played out an entire session or something. They took a lot of blows on the body. So for me, that is Test cricket. The current high-paced nature of Test cricket is something that I don't really enjoy a lot, but I can understand why it is so from whatever you said. So
Yeah,
I think,
and I think some of it has got to do with your decline in interest as well,
yeah, I
because we
think
just
so.
had a Anderson Tendulkar Trophy where each of the 5 games went down to the last session
Yeah,
on day 5. So I think it was one of the most exciting test series ever in the
yeah.
history of the game. And in the recent past, you have had quite a lot of interesting and close finishes, but just that we don't watch them because you don't find the opponent interesting, or maybe test cricket is too boring. So that is what this change in mindset will eventually do. It will make test cricket exciting again and get all the audience that generally draw their line to just ODI cricket. And even nowadays, you see a lot of people just watch IPL or only T20 cricket because they don't
Yeah.
find the other format interesting. That's the only reason. So this is a way to make it more interesting, and it is working because
Mm.
if you see the crowd pull in the last few years, Test cricket has seen the highest increase in viewers, more than T20, not more than T20, but
The growth is maybe similar. Yeah, that's quite an interesting perspective. I think they're also expanding the WTC. This is something that you mentioned. They're introducing a couple of new teams, I think.
yeah, so they are going to make it a 12-team tournament instead of the current 9. So all 12 of the test playing nations will be a part of it. I don't know why they weren't, why they'd excluded 3 of them, but now, so not necessarily that the number of games or anything will change, but you just have a wider pool. So maybe you'll see India play a test series versus Zimbabwe or Ireland before, now, which was not possible before because it had no context.
Yeah, So that's surely something that Jay Shah and his team are working on. They want to bring Test cricket back. So I hope they do that. So let's start wrapping up the podcast now. Are there any other notable news? I think the T20 World Cup got a few important updates that you also shared through a short, but would you like to talk more about it?
Yeah, so we finally got some news about the T20 World Cup. I think I've been talking about it since maybe October,
Yeah,
that they need to do something because it's literally right in front of us now.
it's only a month and a half, so I think about 50 days to go.
Yeah,
That's and the schedule still hasn't come out. This is only the preliminary, the groups and the
yeah,
venues
and
that have come
that
out.
too is through a third party source, which
Yeah,
is very saddening because you expect the governing body to come out with pomp and release the groups on their own, but it's some Indian Express or some other source which always does it. So the four groups are here. I'll quickly tell them because I didn't mention the groups in the short. So the first group A is of course India, Pakistan, USA, Netherlands, and Namibia. So
not a surprise that they've clubbed
yeah,
India, Pakistan again.
and they've clubbed Pakistan and USA again.
Oh yeah,
But interestingly, just two full members here. There are 12 participating in this World Cup, so they could have done it as three in each group, but there are two here, and you know why. And Group B is Australia, Sri Lanka, Ireland, Zimbabwe, and Oman. So you've got four full members in this group. And Sri Lanka got a very tough group, I would say,
yeah.
because you've got Australia and Zimbabwe and Ireland. So anyone can win. And Oman are, I don't consider them as a competition. And Group C is England, West Indies, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Italy. So this is also an interesting group. I think England are going to be one of the two teams, and West
Yeah,
Indies and Bangladesh will fight. And the last group, which I would call the group of death, South Africa, New Zealand, Afghanistan, Canada, and UAE. So South Africa and Afghanistan, the semi-finalist of the previous World Cup, they played against each other. New Zealand, you cannot write them off. And UAE, I won't be surprised if they also do well because they've defeated New Zealand in a T20I before. They've
yeah,
competed against Afghanistan as well. So, and Canada in that group. So it's going to be interesting. 7th February to 8th March. Those are the dates. And you have got league stage, then top two teams from all four groups qualify for Super 8, where you'll have the teams divided into two groups of four again, and they'll play three games in their group, and then the top two from either group there will play the semis. So the same format as the last World Cup is going to be interesting. Hopefully you get good crowd in India
yeah,
and Sri Lanka.
yeah. And in a in the previous podcast, you also mentioned that the venues came out, and there are only five Indian venues. So you have Ahmedabad, Mumbai, Kolkata, is it Delhi and
Delhi and
Dharamshala
Chennai.
and Chennai. So a lot of exciting grounds are missing. There's no cricket in Dharamshala. There's no cricket in Bangalore. There's no cricket in Indore, Pune. These have been 20 venues in India. So just because we're sharing it with Sri Lanka, I think that's the reason for this. And also maybe because we have the IPL, so they don't want to spoil all the pitches.
Yeah, but if you're preferring your local tournament more than your world event, but surely India doesn't value world tournaments as much as their own product, which is bigger than the world tournament. But I feel sad for Hyderabad and Punjab, the two
Yeah,
of those.
Hyderabad as well.
Hyderabad didn't get a India game in 2023 World Cup, and Punjab, Mohali didn't get a World Cup game at all in 2023. And over here as well, they won't. So uh, I feel five venues for a 20-team tournament. They have four venues in Sri Lanka as well, but I would have liked to see a distribution or leaning towards India more than what they have come up with.
Yeah, and potentially we'll have three India games in Ahmedabad. That's assuming that we reach the final. So that will be exciting to see. It might bring back a few old memories, but I hope we can correct them this time.
Yeah, and what I have heard, India's first league game, which is against USA, will be in Ahmedabad. India's first Super 8 game, which is against Australia. So it's already pre-seeded. So that will be in Ahmedabad. So either we'll get a repeat dose or a revenge.
Yeah, I hope it's a revenge. So do we have anything else, or we can wrap this podcast
Yeah, I
up?
can see the urgency to wrap it up. So I think it was a good session, a good podcast. So until next time, this is Ved signing off.
So it's a quick end. But yeah, we'll see you. Bye.